The Tennessee Fish and Wildlife Commission, September 20th, 2024, to order. And I'll ask our Commissioner Monty Ballou to lead us in invocation and the pledge, please.
Stand with me. Lord, we come to you today to say thank you, Lord. We thank you for each and every blessing you've given us, Lord. We thank you for the great state of Tennessee and all the natural resources that we enjoy, Lord. Thank you for Kentucky Lake and the men of TWRA that conserve our fish and wildlife, Lord, and the mission that they're on each and every day. Thank you for this great country where we have freedoms to enjoy and do the things that we do, Lord. Thank you. Lead, guide, and direct us each and every day. Your name, I pray. Amen. Amen. Let's go with face flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Ballou. All right, we got a full house today, and we got a lot of guests. Jimmy Cross, Jimmy Riddle, Clarence and Laura Dye. Welcome our regular members of, we need to make y'all honorary members of the commission. Will Bowling, Jim Perry, Tommy Scarborough, Frederick Booty, Jeff Hodges, Mark Goodlin, Shelley Warren, Shane Warren, Dana Fisher, Martin Thompson, Kathy Thompson, Scott Dodge, Sherry Moore, Susan Graves, Buddy Christmas, Christine Christmas, and Annie Cook. Welcome to y'all. Thank y'all for coming to our meeting. And at the end, we'll give any visitors opportunity to speak if they want to. So anyway, Miss Mary, would you call the roll, please?
Monty Ballou.
Here.
Brad Botts.
Here.
Stan Butt.
Here.
Wally Childress. Here. Bill Cox.
Here.
Greg Davenport.
Here.
Chris Devaney.
Here.
Ford Little. Rhonda Moody. Here. Chip Saltzman.
Here.
Tommy Woods.
Here.
Hank Wright.
Here.
Jimmy Granbery.
Here.
Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate it. Commissioners, you've been distributed the minutes, and I'll entertain a motion of approval.
I have a correction
Okay.
on the Farm Bureau members in attendance at our last meeting. Shelby Van Noy, that's N and a Y, not an N. Mary, if you want to make that correction. I do read the minutes.
So we'll entertain a motion for Commissioner Butt to approve the minutes as amended. I have a second.
Second.
Any other corrections? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you. Minutes approved. Okay. So next up on the agenda are announcements. Director Maxedon.
No, sir, not at this time, Mr. Chairman. I will have some comments later in the program.
Okay. Thank you, Director. We appreciate it. All right. So at this time, I'll call Deputy Director Joe Benedict of Wildlife to the podium. I should have said chief. I gave you a promotion, Joe, but that's all right. Don't expect anything extra next month in your paycheck.
I think my wife already may have spent it.
Yeah, well, I know that drill.
Well, good morning, Commissioners. Thank you, Chairman, for the opportunity here. I'm just here to introduce a special guest we have today, Mr. Will Bowling. Will is with the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. He's here to present a check to us in partnership with the Mildred T. Edwards Trust Fund. And together, Rocky Mountain Elk and the Mildred Edwards Trust has a check for us for $300,000. It's an incredible gift to the agency. This is to purchase 1,300 acres adjacent to the North Country Wildlife Management Area, East Tennessee. It's also, the property is known as a Goliath tract. So Will had some additional information he wanted to share with some additional potential partnership with us. And so we turn it over to Will here for a minute.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to say thank you all for having us out here today. I am with the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. And first of all, I would just like to thank everyone on the TWRA Commission, now the TWRA staff, for the long history of partnership that we've had with you in the past, leading up to the present and into the future. So that said, again, all appreciation, but we do have one more piece of good news directly relating to the Goliath tract. RMEF has a pool of money that we set aside for habitat work on new property acquisitions we partner with. We have been working really closely with Elk program staff and with the local WMA staff at North Cumberland WMA. They have identified some habitat needs for this new 1,300 acre acquisition. And it appears we're working the details out right now, but RMEF will be able to bring an additional $25,000 to TWRA for habitat work that should be kicking off if everything goes as expected in the first quarter of 2025. So again, huge props to the local staff down there, the Elk program staff. They've been incredibly helpful as we've looked at different options. And again, just thank you all for your partnership.
So the chairman requested we take pictures at the break, but we wanted to show you the check that came in, and also just again a reminder about the Mildred Edward Trust contribution to this as well. So thank you, Rocky Mountain Elk and the trust, and appreciate what you guys do for us.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Will, thank you so much. And on behalf of the commission, we can't thank you enough, and we'll be taking some pictures at the break. So hang around, and maybe that you'll get another good news, and we'll have another 25,000 by the time we get to break. Yeah, well, just hang around. Maybe we'll stay all day. So anybody else on the commission like to offer any congratulations to Will or any comments? Okay, seeing none, continue on, Chief Benedict.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have another special recognition today, and this is a dear and dear to my heart. I want to ask Mr. Jeff Hodges to come up. He works for the National Bobwhite Grassland Initiative, previously known as NBGI. This group partners relationships with state fish and wildlife agencies, other state agencies, and non-government organizations. They focus on restoring grasslands and quail, really across the eastern seaboard and far out into kind of into the Midwest. I'm not going to steal his thunder about some of the accomplishments that Mark Goodin has done, but Mark was the award recipient of the NBGI Hall of Fame for his work throughout his career. Mark started working for the agency in 1983, and I think I was in high school then, and he just retired a few years ago. Mark was the chief of the Wildlife and Forestry Division before and after the reorganization. He was our first chief of the Wildlife and Forestry Division as a statewide work unit with 160 some odd people. So Mark's a great mentor to many of us, me personally. He's a great friend. He's mentored and hired many, many people in our agency in my division. He's we call him the father, the godfather of the private lands program. He was instrumental in getting funding from NRCS to hire our private land biologists that we have across the state. He knows more about the Farm Bill than anybody I know. And all the programs that we call alphabet soup, EQIP and WRP and all those things, CRP, that bring grassland habitat onto the ground for wildlife. He's been a primary liaison, like I said, with NRCS. He still continues to volunteer his time. He's part of the Music City Quail chapter. They had a banquet a few weeks ago that we were able to go to. Many of the agency folks were able to go, and commissioners as well. So Mark had a great history with the agency. He promoted all the way up, like I said, to chief. He continues to serve in various capacities because his passion is grasslands and quail and wildlife. So for Mark, congratulations on this. I'm going to ask you to come up now as Jeff provides the nomination.
Thank you, Joe. Director Maxon, commissioners, appreciate the opportunity to be here today. On a personal note, I first met Mark. We had this discussion. We can't decide when, but it's somewhere in the late 80s. I had come to Tennessee and was actually doing a presentation one night, maybe in a VFW hall or something. And it was a rainy night. And this was, some of you will appreciate this. We were still using slides. There wasn't any such thing as a PowerPoint. And Somebody ran off the road and hit a power pole and power went out. So we're sitting in a pitch dark room and here I am in the middle of a presentation trying to make slides work. So if you'll imagine what's in this picture, I tried to explain to him. But anyway, that's when I first met Mark. At that time, he made a real impression on me. And through the years, I've had the opportunity to work with Mark in other positions and really watch his rise through his career. So this has been a real special thing for me to be able to be here and do this presentation. He was already awarded this as our annual meeting back in August, but we wanted to do that here in front of his hometown, in front of his home group today. So I'm going to bear with me as I read through his nomination letter, and then we'll conclude this. So Mark was one of the recipients of the National Bobwhite and Grasslands Initiative Hall of Fame Award, and which is given at our annual meeting each year. Mark worked for TWRA for 38 years. You all know that. He's been a key player in bobwhite recovery efforts for over 3 decades, even starting in a previous century, I think. So anyway, Mark was one of the original group that formed the Southeast Quail Study Group in 1995, a meeting in South Carolina. He's always been a leader in the National Bobwhite Technical Committee. He's chaired a number of the committees there, the subcommittees, and he's also chaired the Southeast Quail Study Group through some of the critical years as the first ever National Quail Recovery Plan was written. Mark, along with Dr. Ralph Demick and Don McKenzie, coordinated and edited the Northern Bobwhite Conservation Initiative, which was finalized in March of 2002. Mark was also the co-author of the NBGI chapter for the Central Hardwoods Bird Conservation Region. Through his strong relationship with Tennessee's Natural Resource Conservation Service, he and TWRA pioneered 3 NRCS area biologist positions devoted strictly to securing wildlife benefits from Farm Bill programs. In 2002, Mark was presented the Southeast Quail Study Group Individual Award for his leadership up to that point. Excuse me. He went on to help write a grant proposal that ultimately led to funding the first full-time NBGI coordinator position, and he also worked with the University of Tennessee to help create the Center for Native Grasslands Management. Mark was part of the Southeast Quail Study Group team that convinced USDA Farm Services agencies to create the CP33 habitat buffers for upland birds practices in the CRP, and in 2004, he helped secure additional grants to fund the National Bobwhite Conservation Initiative Bobwhite Plan revision in 2005. He served in various leadership roles in TWRA, including Chief of Wildlife, and retired in 2021 as a Habitat Program Manager. Through many of his roles, he functioned as the agency's point person for private lands habitat and was always a strong proponent of bobwhite quail conservation, prescribed fire, and early successional wildlife habitat. At the time of his retirement, 4 TWRA wildlife habitat biologists, 7 Quail Forever habitat biologists were cooperative funded by TWRA, NRCS, and Quail Forever. Mark served nationally on numerous Farm Bill program subcommittees in the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies. And he also served as vice chair and chair of the EQIP working group. He represented TWRA on the Central Hardwoods joint venture for over 10 years, including time serving as vice chair and chair. And additionally, he served as co-chair of NBGI's Working Lands for Wildlife Bobwhite's ad hoc committee. As Joe mentioned, he's still involved and he's a member of NBGI and Quail Forever and currently serves as treasurer of the Music City Quail Forever chapter. And it is my pleasure today to recognize Mark Gudlin as a member of the NBGI Hall of Fame. Mark is only the 3rd class of inductees into the Hall of Fame. And his classmates this year also included Bill Palmer of Tall Timbers and Dr. Wes Berger of Mississippi State University. So Mark is in quite elite company. And it's my pleasure to recognize Mark as the National Bobwhite Grasslands Initiative Hall of Fame.
Thank you very much. That's quite an honor. The Lord blessed me with a long and rewarding career with the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency, and for that I give a lot of thanks. One of the gratifying parts of my career, as Jeff mentioned, I was part of the original gang that formed the Southeast Quail Study Group in 1995, and we began in efforts to unify bobwhite management and data standardization across the southeastern states on a regional scale. Another step forward with the group was the transformation to the National Bobwhite Conservation Initiative, where we expanded range-wide to include 25 states, and then in recent years, the group morphed to the National Bobwhite and Grasslands Initiative. Key to these changes were increased knowledge on how managing bobwhites also improves habitat for many declining songbirds and pollinators, and also highlights the need for restoration of native grasslands, native shrublands, and early successional habitats. And hopefully through continued efforts of the state and federal agencies on both their lands and also with their private land staff, and through programs such as the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Conservation Reserve Program and the Working Lands for Wildlife Bobwhites, we'll continue to see some rebounds in native grassland habitats and bobwhites and all the wildlife species that are associated with it. I do want to give thanks to the members of the NBGI for the honor of this award, and also deep thanks to many of you whom I've had the pleasure of working with across many years with the agency. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, we'll take a photo at the break of both of these. Thank you.
Well, congratulations, Mark, and it's really special for this commission and this agency that we consider you one of ours, and so it's a very special honor. Would any commissioners like to offer any comments? Commissioner Ballou.
Mark, when he transferred Henry County, moved next door to my mom and dad. And I was a young man, and Mark would always invite me over to his house. He would say, if you kill any ducks, cut the wings off. He'd come over, he'd show me things about the colors, the feathers, the species of the duck, male or female. And I mean, I learned a lot from him. So thank you and congratulations.
Just to illustrate, I think Mark's love of quail and what he's received this award for, he was appointed chief of wildlife at this agency, which is a pretty big deal, and served that for a little while. And this is just from my seat. I think Mark found that job wouldn't allow him to do what he really loved to do, to try to restore quail and the other things that go along with the habitat and all that stuff. And he gave that seat up to continue that work. That's pretty admirable commitment to give that up to continue to do what you love. So congratulations. I think it's well deserved.
Chairman. I enjoyed working with Mark when I came on, but now one of the outstanding attributes of Mark is his passion for what he was doing. And so I commend you for that. And I was greatly encouraged, contrary to Bill Cox's commitment to restoring quail in Tennessee. I think that he even appreciates that commitment and passion from you as well. So thank you.
All right, now this commission has worked really hard to bring Monty out of his shell. He's been shy, and I think Monty got something that he'd like to make a presentation on.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, hey, I would like to make one quick announcement, shocker, before I start with this deal. The season is over for Monty. I wanted to introduce you all to my wife. Stand up, baby. Last commission meeting, I wasn't married, and this one I am. So we got married and took the kids to UT Chattanooga game. And anyway, here we are. So thank you for coming. Hey, today we celebrated this yesterday, but I'd like Mr. Tommy Scarborough to come up. Tommy, where you at? Tommy and Alice Scarborough have done an unbelievable job with the Holly Fork Shooting Complex, which is just right down the road from Paris Landing State Park here. I would say around 2003, right around in there, we started the Scholastic Clay Target Program for our youth in Henry County, which is really blown up. We've got top-notch shooters. We're one of the biggest programs in the state of Tennessee. It affords young men and women an opportunity to get out and do something that they can do the rest of their lives. I coached it for several years. I kind of got out of it. I decided it's hard to coach kids that can outshoot you. So I can't tell them what they're doing wrong because I can't outshoot them. But Tommy can. He and his wife have taken over Holly Fork Shooting Complex and done a great job of it. And it's absolutely a place to go to and you have a good time for shooting clays, rifle, shotgun, sport trap, skeet, our handgun range as well. TWRA has been fortunate enough to come in and partner with them. We've done about $30,000 worth of our heavy equipment crew has gone in and changed some dirt around and made it more accessible. So we thank our heavy equipment crew for doing that $30,000 move. And also through some good work through Lacey Lane, Frank Fiss, the director, and this commission, we were able to award the Henry County Youth Shooting Sports Program Holly Fork Shooting Complex a check yesterday for $50,625 to Mr. Tommy Scarborough and the Holly Fork Shooting Complex. Thank you. You got anything coming?
On behalf of the Holly Fork Shooting Complex and everything, and all the board members and especially my wife, thank you. We invite everybody to come up there and enjoy it, and from the kids, everything that we do up there, this money and everything goes to the kids. So that's where we're at. But anyway, thank the board, thank all of y'all for your support, and we look forward to all of you coming up there and enjoying whatever. And we'll try to make you happy some way. And I made a statement there yesterday that I probably shouldn't have and everything about the number 3 on the sporting clays and everything. It's a pretty fast target and everything. And one of the board members and everything, Chairman, he said something about it being a little bit too fast, a little bit whatever. And I said, well, we had to set something up with the girls and everything, you know. And so, but anyway, everybody had a lot of fun, and we'd like to invite you all back up there and everything to enjoy things with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Blue. Tommy, Alice, thank you so much. Wonderful day yesterday. We had a good time on the sporting clays. The lunch was fantastic. The homemade cookies were really good. I'm waiting for the recipe, and really appreciate your hospitality. And we will be back, and we thank you for that. Okay, so now I'd like to call Captain Roy Smith to the podium, please.
Good morning. This on. Thank you for a few minutes of your time this morning. So I was asked to come today. I am one of our statewide accident investigators, and I was asked to come today. Has been working on for really a year, but it kind of started about 4 years ago, and it got shelved for a little while because of COVID. Then we picked it back up last fall. So last fall at our we have an annual meeting at the end of each summer to kind of talk about what's happening in the boating world. What are we seeing? What trends are we seeing? What can we do better moving forward next spring for training purposes, et cetera. And last fall, we identified a problem. And that problem was we were seeing a trend of folks getting caught in spillways around hydroelectric dams. And we did a deep dive into the numbers, and we saw that in the 10 years where we pulled numbers, we'd had 17 fatalities around hydroelectric dams in the state of Tennessee. And so we kind of dove a little deeper. Where are these fatalities happening? And it wasn't any one dam. If it had been one particular dam, we likely could have went to TVA and said, hey, this dam has a problem. We need to exclude people from this dam. We've got to do something with this dam. Rather, we had at least 5 dams that had fatalities associated with the spillways and 3 dams that had multiple fatalities. So we'd had 17 fatalities in those 10 years. So we said, obviously, this is a problem that we need to address. So, with any problem that you want to fix, a lot of times the first step is, what are we doing currently? So we looked at that. What are we doing on enforcement aspect, in the enforcement aspect currently to address this problem? So we looked at citation numbers, around hydroelectric dams. If you're operating when those spillways are operating, that could be and often is considered reckless operation. And we do write some citations for that, but it's tough. And looking at those numbers and how they coincided with the incidents, we felt like it wasn't doing the job. It wasn't discouraging people from interacting with those dams. So we looked at life jacket usage, and we write a lot of citations around hydroelectric dams for life jackets, because in those areas below the dams, if you're in that area, you have to have on a PFD. And while we encourage that, we do write those citations, we educate folks, we talk to them about the need for it. Unfortunately, around these spillways, we see it every year. Folks go into these spillways with life jackets on. It's just not enough. It's the one time that I will say a life jacket's not good. It's just water's dangerous. It's too violent. It's too turbulent. It just won't save folks. We see them go in and they don't survive. So we decided that, telling folks when we write these citations, talking to them wasn't enough, because we would get the same response a lot of times. We'll write a citation for somebody being too close to that, and the conversation we would have would be something along the lines of, I fished here my entire life. I've never seen an issue. I've never had a problem. I've never seen anybody have a problem. I've been here 40 years. Those types of things. There was obviously a disconnect with the folks that were fishing and boating in these areas. They just didn't understand how dangerous these places were. So we realized we had to continue doing our enforcement efforts, then couple some education efforts. And we needed, instead of just telling people that this is dangerous, we really needed to show them. We needed to create some materials, and our initial thought was a PSA, a video to really show how dangerous these areas were. So we looked around, are there any of these materials out there? Does anything exist that would work for this, that we could use in our boater education classes, that we could use on social media, that we could use all those avenues we use to push information out? And we quickly realized there's nothing out there for hydroelectric dams. There were some things for low head dams and boater ed, but really nothing to say when they're spilling water over these. Are there any of these materials out there? Does anything exist that would work for this, that we could use in our boater education classes? And we explained to them the problem. We highlighted to them the numbers that we had seen, the issues we had seen. And the timing was perfect, because TVA has just created a dam safety division. Well, kind of a dam safety division within their dam safety division. In that safety division, they've always had folks that their job is safety around these hydroelectric dams. But within that division, created some positions where prior to this, those dam safety folks were focused on people that work at the dam. They were focused on the safety of the dam itself. This new division is focused on boaters and the public interacting with those dams. So we reached out to those folks and we said, this is what we would like to do. We would like to automate some boats, put some remote controls on some boats, and drive these things through your spillway and video it, and create a good video to really show the carnage that ensues after this happens, to push that out and really illustrate how dangerous these dams are. So they were super on board. We've got some folks in our investigation division who have worked with NASBLA for years and doing stage collisions. So we have some history with automating boats and driving boats with remote controls and crashing them into each other. So we took a couple of John boats that were to be surplus, some old John boats. We put electric trolling motors on the front of them, and we put remote controls on those boats, and we drove them through the spillway. TVA gave us incredible access to the dam. We had cameras all over the dam. Our I&E folks did a great job of capturing all that footage. We took that footage, and they took that footage. I didn't do any of this. They took that footage and compiled it and worked their editing magic and created a really good PSA that we're going to allow you guys to watch. Our goal with this PSA is, again, boater education, public events, social media. I worked with TVA last week. We presented this to 800 folks at a conference TVA had in Chattanooga. And then this week, we put this in front of the National Convention for the National Association of State Boating Law Administrators. and representatives from all 50 states were there, and they were able to take a copy of this back with them to their areas to distribute this among their folks. So we're going to get, our goal is to get as many eyes on it as possible, and we've got the final product here for you guys to watch today.
We love our locking dams because they provide hydroelectric power, water storage, and recreation for us. But we also do need to be mindful of their operations and how it affects those water flows.
In most scenarios, dams can be safe to operate around. The warning lights and sirens are there for a reason. Often the individuals who find themselves in harm's way above and below dams do not realize how dangerous they really are. Whether you are a recreational boater or fisherman, these dams present dangers that are not worth the risk. During high water events, some hydroelectric dams can release as much water as flows over Niagara Falls, close to 750,000 gallons of water per second. A boater would never consider operating their vessel above Niagara Falls. So why would you ever consider operating a boat near a dam while it is spilling? Calm and pristine waters above the dam can be deceptive. Boaters in these areas can be pulled into the spillway without even realizing the danger they are in. Many of the incidents worked through the years were the result of an engine issue. By the time operators realize they are having mechanical problems, it is often too late. Fishermen attempting to use their trolling motor to get them out of harm's way quickly find a trolling motor is not enough to remove them from the dangerous current. Although life jackets are required and save lives, they may not be enough, and they are often no match for the dynamic, dangerous, and violent waters. Imagine the terror a boater must feel as they face their final moments. Rescuers and first responders may be limited in their ability to respond to a distressed boater immediately above or below a dam.
When we were looking above, it was very eerie to watch that boat go through because that boat never rocked at all. It just fell off, and it was really quick. It happened really quick. And so we've seen these kind of things happen, and we don't want people to have that false sense of security.
Last year, I actually saw a guy that was up here close to the lock wall. He was crappie fishing, had no idea that his boat was drifting back as fast as it was. Till we hollered at him on the bullhorn, and when we hollered at him, he realized what was happening, and he pulled out and left.
Through the years, this is a great destination for our anglers. People come from all over and want to come to this location for the great fishing opportunities, not just above the dam, but below the dam. But also through the years, we've seen a number of incidents that have taken people's lives, as well as incidents that have nearly taken people's lives.
There are 1,449 hydroelectric dams found across the country. There are 29 hydroelectric dams in the Tennessee River system. Officers have found that incidents are not dam specific. All hydroelectric dams can be dangerous. Just in Tennessee alone, 5 dams in the past 10 years have had at least one fatality associated with spillways. Pickwick, Cheatham, and Loudon have all had multiple fatalities. Water conditions can change in a matter of minutes. Be vigilant and have proper situational awareness.
This water, just the force of it, the current of it, if you lose the power, if you lose your big motor, you are in immediate danger here. Trolling motor will not pull you out of it.
They don't look like problem areas when you're fishing, but most of our folks that are fishing just don't understand the hydraulics that go on in those areas, and it creates a unique boating environment. So if somebody has boat troubles, they have problems, or whatever it is, they can find themselves in trouble really quick. want them to be aware, just because you see one or two floodgates open, or just because you hear a siren, don't tune that out. Pay attention to your surroundings. Look, be very familiar with where you're at. And I promise you, it's not worth those fish all the way up against the dam if it's going to take somebody's life or injure somebody.
Save one life. If we can save one person from being killed when having a horrible boating tragedy, that makes all of the man hours that was put into this whole situation worthwhile. That will be the biggest thing that we can get out of this. Is just getting the public the knowledge that it's great. We want you to come out. We want you to go fishing. We want you to go boating, have fun, but be aware of the dangers of being around the dam.
Through the years, we have visited with victims' families, and they have, in lesser words, begged us to not let this happen to another family. And, that's really the reason we're out here. It's in the heart and soul of all of our wildlife officers, our boating investigators, even our fisheries and wildlife people that have to work out here and enjoy it. They do not want a day to turn tragic, and around some of these dams, that does happen.
This safety message is brought to you by the Tennessee Valley Authority, Hartman County EMA, the U.S. Coast Guard, Army Corps of Engineers, and your Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency. Just one other thing I wanted to mention. So in doing this, we did have concerns about family members, victims who had gone through this. And when we deal with things like this, we more often than not, we develop relationships with those folks because just the nature of how these things go. And so we did reach out to some of these family members just to let them know this was happening and talk them through this. And they were all very supportive. They actually wanted copies of it to look at it and understand that we can use this information to try to prevent something like that from happening in the future.
Thank you, Captain Smith. Does anybody on the commission have any questions for Captain Smith?
Hey, Captain, one quick question.
Yes, sir.
I met with TVA and talked to them about Pickwick Dam before. And, I have seen some in the past and talked to them about this, about putting a floating barrier on the top side of the dam.
Yeah.
Now, I know there's some issues with that. They have removal of debris that comes up against it and things of that nature. But if you had a floating barrier around the top side of it that would not allow a boat to go inside that barrier, would that not be a safe 100% proof type deal that TVA could manage?
Yes, potentially. And, not being a hydrologist or those, have that background those guys have. We did discuss that with TVA, and their concern and the issue is they move so much water. There are places in the country. I actually spoke with some folks from there that ran some hydroelectric dams in Texas. I was in New Orleans day before yesterday and spoke with them. They have barriers. They have physical barriers around there. They don't generate as much electricity. They don't run as much water as what TVA is running. So I'm told because of the amount of water that TVA runs, it would be a constant debris field out there. They would basically have to have folks that man that constantly. Now, one of the dam operators I spoke with in Texas this week said they have developed new barriers that they are designed to break away in the middle. So basically in every day or two or three, they go out, they unlatch those things, and they basically hinge down, allow all the stuff to go out, and then they latch them back. So I've got that contact information. I'm going to put it in. And again, TVA has just developed this division of folks whose job it is to keep you and I safe around dams rather than just their people. And so this may be something that now they're open to where they didn't have a person to handle that in the past. So I reached out to those folks in Texas. They're going to get me the contact information for the manufacturer of those barriers, and we're going to work with TVA to see if that's something they can do. They are extremely open to new ideas and new processes because they're seeing this, and their people see when these happen. Their people are on scene too. They want to prevent these things too. So yes, that is a possibility. There may be some, and it may be something that certain dams it can happen and certain it can't just because of the functionality and the design of the dams. We are working with TVA on that possibility.
Anybody else? Thank you again.
Thank
Very
you.
well done. We
Thank you.
appreciate your hard work on this issue. I know it's a tough situation. So we're going to do some pictures at the break. Once again, congratulations to Will Bowling and Rocky Mountain for their great donation. Mark Goodin, congratulations on your induction. Monty and the High Fork shooting range, great. And again, Captain Smith, great video. A couple of thank yous that are in order. Thank you to the foundation. Once again, we had a very successful raffle. All the proceeds go directly to support land acquisition and habitat. Johnny, Joey, and the entire foundation staff do a wonderful job, and they're a great partner for this agency. Secondly, Earl Bentz, our former chairman of the commission, board chair, owner of Camus Boats. He gave a Camus boat this year to the raffle, and I think it greatly enhanced our results over the years. We've had some great prizes, but to have a Tennessee-owned company donate a boat was very, very nice. And finally, the staff, Jason, your entire team, top to bottom, all your hard work. I know we're working through some tough times, and we appreciate all the hard work that we're all working for the same thing. We're looking for a long-term and this resource. And so with that, unless any commissioners have any comments, we'll take a 15-minute break. Okay. And I'd like everybody to be in these photos, please. The commissioners in the photos, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to kind of get into a hot topic of discussion that we've been working on as an agency and a commission, but I want to go over a few things before I get into that. Obviously, you all know that this year is celebrating 75 years of wildlife and fisheries conservation and law enforcement since we were founded in 1949. Over the years, we've seen restoration of iconic game species like white-tailed deer, black bears, wild turkey, and even now the elk in East Tennessee. We've worked to restore native Tennessee brook trout to streams. We've also been able to delist endangered snail darters and bald eagles. TRA has funded research initiatives to advance conservation, published quarterly magazines for customers, and we've hosted hundreds of events for youth, women, and veterans each year. Through it all, our managers prioritize creating habitat opportunities that provide high-quality hunting and fishing opportunities for Tennesseans and visitors alike. But everything that our biologists and managers need to advance our mission, everything that our customers want and expect from us, and everything the state mandates that we do comes with a hefty price tag. 75 years ago, when the Game and Fish Commission was established, it was built on the North American model of wildlife conservation, and it was designed to be self-funded and self-regulated. In this model, it's the model that we still have today, with the majority of our funding coming from the sales of hunting and fishing licenses, and a 13-member board of commissioners who are made up of knowledgeable outdoor men and women and appointed by elected officials who have the vote of Tennesseans. Today, we're here to say that we need a more sustainable funding model. We cannot continue the way we are now without taking some action. Since our last license price increase, the cost of doing business has skyrocketed. It's not just here for the agency, but many of you have experienced this in your businesses as well. I want to give some examples. One of the most popular services that we provide is the production of fish at our hatcheries to stock our Tennessee waters. This work both improves the quality of sport fishing and restores threatened species back to their habitats. Our hatcheries are able to produce around 9 million fish. You all seen that in our annual report. We stock those annually. However, the cost of the trucks used to deliver fish has increased 65%. The cost of diesel for those trucks has increased 68%. The cost of fish food needed at the hatcheries is up 101%. And even state contracts for solid waste and garbage disposal to keep properties clean is up 106% from 2016. Like other state agencies, we also are subject to state mandated expenses, such as pay raises, even though we do not receive appropriations for them. The internet and phone service that we're required to use have gone up 118% through the state. State general services expenses are up 72%, and payroll has increased 40% since the last license fee increase. In just a minute, you're going to hear from Deputy Director Fiss. He's going to present the agency's recommendations for a license fee increase that falls in line with consumer price index inflation that we've seen since our last increase. This is a limit that the General Assembly has set in law to ensure that any license increase is fair and within a reasonable amount based on inflation. Our staff have spent hours looking for the best approach for this, one that not only increases revenue, but also simplifies the structure and eliminates some of the confusion customers have had for years. Ultimately, though, the decision is going to be up to you, commissioners, as representatives of Tennessee hunters and anglers, to help decide how we continue funding the work that we do here at the agency. As an agency, we will also continue actively working to close the funding gap in other ways. Right now, as you know, we're holding 20 positions vacant. These are law enforcement positions. We're holding these open as they come open through retirement. We're currently also not hiring any new wildlife officers and won't be holding a Tennessee Law Enforcement Officer Training Academy. This is the first time that I know that this has happened in the history of the Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency. We also reduced the budget this year by $800,000. We're not funding any new conservation research, staff new infrastructure projects, and we're cutting publication distribution by almost half. These are cuts in services that we don't want to make, but these are necessary for us to continue operations. As we said before, we're also looking at additional license changes that ensure all users pay their fair share, including the ones that you know about, off-highway vehicle use and paddlers. When the General Assembly created the OHV program, it was meant to be self-sustainable, but as you all know, it's not. The agency intends to bring new permitting proposals for OHVs to fund the $5.3 million worth of maintenance and management funding deficit that these OHVs have created on North Cumberland WMA. We also saw an explosion of paddlecraft users during the pandemic, which has continued to grow. Based on national and regional estimates, there are roughly 500,000 paddlers in Tennessee, and thanks to new research that we've completed, we know that only half are paying into the funding model, purchasing a hunting and fishing license or by registering a boat. The rest are still getting to use the same access points as our fishermen, as our anglers, and they're not having to pay anything to be able to do that. However, our mission and state mandate requires us to provide law enforcement for public safety on these waterways, regardless of whether someone is a licensed buyer or not. We're also tasked with maintaining more than 1,200 access areas and ramps and receive countless requests to build more. In fact, I think there's going to be some folks here today that are going to be asking for that. Today, we know that managing for paddlecraft is creating roughly a $2 million annual deficit in funding. Because this agency was established to be user-friendly, I believe the right thing to do is to ensure all using in a way that equitably represents the services that they receive. These are not going to be easy challenges. As you all know, there's not an easy solution. We've been talking to you about this for several months and even over the course of the last 2 years. Our team has worked hard to try and bring you good solutions. So today, Commissioner, you're going to hear a proposal from the agency. I don't envy you as you. This is a difficult decision for us all that we have to make between now and our December commission meeting. I've had the chance to get to know each of you personally, not just in the work and during your tenure, and I know that you're going to give this as much thought and care as the challenge deserves. Thank you for what you're going to do today. We're going to be bringing you the rest, depending on what you tell us today in December. The public is going to have a time to comment on that in October and November, and Deputy Fiss will be talking about those dates in his presentation. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back over to you to call Deputy Director Fiss up.
Thank you, Chairman. And I can assure you all 13 of us are up for the task, and we look forward to hearing Deputy Director Frank Fiss' presentation. Frank.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. All right. Yeah, this is nobody's surprised that occasionally an agency will have to raise their licenses and fees, but it's not a chore that we welcome. I want to thank all of the people that buy fishing licenses, hunting licenses, register their boats. They're the people that are funding conservation in Tennessee, and that role is a large portion of the funding that we use at Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency. About 45% of our annual budget relies on that funding source. There's a lot of states that have different funding models where they get more state appropriations or may have some other revenue coming in, but in Tennessee, we rely heavily on those license dollars. So thank you for your participation in conservation, and we'll go through this. On the agenda here, you'll see there's 2 rules to be discussed. They're actually both covered in this one preview. There will be no vote today. This is a first step in a much longer process. So why consider a fee increase? As the director alluded, we're wrestling with inflation of cost of goods and services. Our prices have not changed for most of our licenses since 2015. If you look at the Consumer Price Index data, that's about a 31.5% increase in cost that we're experiencing, just like you are at home. The dollar that you held in your pocket in 2015 is worth about 76 cents today in buying power. On the boat registration side, we haven't increased rates since 2019. That's about 22% increase in cost we've experienced since then. And all along, we've continued, as we've tried to continue as much of the same services throughout this 10-year period, despite increasing costs. We're cutting corners where we can, but eventually this is going to start to show over time. We're spending, it's the first year that we've actually we closed more money than we actually collected. So we were doing better before, and that gets to why we're doing this now 10 years later. I mean, maybe some organizations would have a model where they wait every 10 years to change fees. It might be better to do it more often. Certainly wouldn't have done it any sooner because of COVID. We had right at about the time when inflation should have been catching up to us naturally. COVID came along and we had our sales increase incredibly. So we had the revenue coming in to do the things that we do. Unfortunately, those people got their regular lives back, got busy, and they were not buying hunting and fishing licenses anymore. Yet the headaches of inflation that we all experienced from COVID have lingered on. All those supply chain and increased demand issues have. So we're dealing with the inflation is got bad following and during COVID, and we're still realizing that. So that's why we've waited till now. I think otherwise we'd have been having this conversation maybe 3-4 years ago. As the director mentioned, here's some examples of the fees we experience as an agency. We buy a lot of vehicles, boats, motors, fish food. We have a lot of services that we have to purchase through state government. We've all gone up as well. In the last, what's this 9-year period, we're buying similar things for in 2024. Everything's gone up a bunch. So our objective when we looked at how to find the revenue that we need and stay within the CPI or the inflation boundaries that the law provides, with these 3 objectives. We wanted to try to increase the boat registration by about 22%, the hunting and fishing licenses by 28%, and while we're working on it, simplify some of the that it's clearer for our customers and our administrator or our staff to help customers. Let's go over that schedule. Today, I'm just giving an overview of the proposed changes. This is just for the commission's benefit to be aware that we're working on a rule, for the public's awareness that there will be a rule that we're working to have it done by October 15, and we file that. And at that time, that will have our latest proposed pricing in it by detail. I'm not going to go over all the detailed pricing today, but you'll see all the prices or the new fee costs in that document. And we will also do a public relations announcement to say that, hey, we have just submitted this, and here we'll summarize it so the public can give us comment on it. Some of the simplifications, especially that we've done, we may get some feedback to help that along as well. So once that happens in October, there'll be, we'll set it, there'll be, depending on when we get it in, there'll be a deadline. It'll probably end in late November for the public to comment. And then the rule to the commission at the December meeting. I think the commission could choose to not approve any of it. They could amend it or approve it. We take what we get from that meeting and we prepare it to be submitted to the Secretary of State. We're looking at a March 31st deadline for that. Once that's in that process, we will anticipate having to go to the Joint Government Ops Committee at legislature, where they will review the rule. Would go into effect July 1 of 2025, and no sooner. So I'll start with the boating proposal. We approach this as a flat 22% increase across the board. An example would be one of our top selling pieces is a 1-year registration for a typical fishing boat. It's currently $29. 22% increase on that is approximately $36. So that, and if that happened, it wouldn't go into effect till July. Now, there's no changes of any of the other requirements to have a registration or the different types of registrations that we would offer. There was no need to simplify our boating registration structure, we felt at that time. But all the prices did go up or are proposed to go up. When we switch over to the hunting and fishing licenses, our target was to adjust all the fees to where we would see a 28% increase in revenue. Individual license fees would vary. We move some up more than others. Most of them are in that 27 to 30% range. For example, the resident hunt fish combo is $33. It's up to $42. We actually tried to keep that one a little, with some of the simplification we did, we built a few dollars into it. So we still landed within our range, but there's actually more privileges associated with that hunt fish combo now. When you switch over to the sportsman's license, which is our second most popular license, We chose to only propose increasing that by 12%. That would increase it by $20 to $185. Through law, we are required to link the increase in a sportsman's license, or the lifetime sportsman's follow the sportsman's license fee. So we were proposing 12% for all categories of the lifetime sportsman's licenses. Here are some individual categories, if you will, that we addressed differently than, say, the 28% range. We looked at the real foot preservation permits. They haven't been adjusted since 2005. It's 20 years. We're proposing to increase them from $3 a day to $5 a day, and the annuals would go 16 to 25. On our migratory bird permit, there's a $1 fee for this permit right now. We're proposing to increase it to $2, not so much for the revenue gain, because there's only a couple tens of thousands of people that buy that at $1, but at the $2 price point, we can certify that person as hunting in Tennessee, and that makes us eligible to get federal dollars back for habitat in Tennessee. And that $2 would count as a hunting certification and look more like about $36 to us when we get that money back. Now, we're still doing we're still torturing the database to figure out how many people are actually in that boat where they buy a hunting license in one fiscal year, buy their migratory bird permit in the next fiscal year, and then don't hunt. So it's a small portion of everybody, but it's worth looking into, and it may be in the permit. We've chosen to propose no changes to any of the categories of resident disability licenses. These are typically a $10 license for, say, fishing for the blind or veterans with disabilities. And we're proposing no changes for permits at TWA fishing lakes. We've got a new lake involved there at Lake Halford. We're not ready to tinker with, so to speak. And we've got a lot of printed material associated with our current pricing at these lakes. It's probably not worth the lift right now until we assess where we're at with that. So now let's talk about a big change that we're proposing to simplify our system and make us, well, based on the callers we get from out of state, our people that work or hunt and fish in other states, this concept of having a weapon-based licensing system is not all, and we'd like to try a species-based system. So currently, you would buy a hunt-fish combo. If you wanted to hunt big game, say deer, I might buy a combo license, a gun license, and I'm ready to go if I'm not on a WMA. Or I might have an annual sportsman's license. Or I might buy all the ones. Those are all supplemental licenses. We're proposing that we go to a system where you still buy your basic hunt and fish combo license, but now you're going to buy supplemental licenses by species. If you're a deer hunter, you would just buy the deer. If you hunt deer and turkey, you would buy deer and turkey. And of course, the annual sportsman would always be available. Here are the prices that we're proposing for these changes. I consider draft form right now until we get from the commission today and public comment as well. But you would see that from a price point of view, that deer hunter that just hunts with a gun is currently, they might be paying $66. In the new scenario, they'd be paying $84. If they were hunting with multiple, all weapon types previously, they were paying, what, $132, and now they're still paying $84 if they're only hunting for deer. So there'll be people that pay a little more, people that pay a little less, depending on how they participate. And we're going to do a similar thing with non-residents. That's kind of been a recurring theme in this, is trying to have parallels between how the license is structured for residents and non-residents. So currently, if you're a non-resident, you show up, you can either buy a year's worth or 7 days worth to hunt for deer. We would have them follow the same system that our residents do. You either buy an annual or a 7-day hunt fish combo, and you choose your species that you're going to be hunting. And then incidentally, none of this, all the seasons that are associated with, say, archery, muzzleloader, or gun would still happen, but you would just have to have the species permit. So the pricing we're proposing on these is listed there. It's higher for non-residents. That's traditional. One new item that we're adding there is the option for a non-resident to buy an annual sportsman at that price point, $540. Okay, shifting gears to trout right now. We currently have a requirement that if you're fishing for trout, not even whether you harvest them or not, if you fish for trout, you're supposed to have a trout supplemental license in Tennessee, and residents typically would buy that supplemental with their type 1 combo or have a sportsman or lifetime license. For years, it's worked that way. I view this as kind of a legacy license. Years and years ago, there were a few trout hatcheries and hardly any warm water hatcheries. Fast forward to now, we've got more what we call warm water hatcheries than we do trout hatcheries. So the cost of stocking fish is not it's not all about trout anymore. It covers a lot of species. So to do for the resident that fishes for trout and maybe doesn't hunt, this is they're actually going to get a break because they were buying a combo and buying a trout supplemental. Now they'll just need to buy the combo. We've done, just so the commission knows, we've done the work to make sure that the revenue that is lost by not requiring this trout supplemental is caught up with in other pricing throughout this whole package. Now I shift gears to the non-resident fishing options. The way it is today, if you come to Tennessee as a non-resident, you've got to know if you're fishing for trout or not. It's a little confusing, I think. All fish, no trout. Eventually, but they've got 6 options to consider. We want it with no trout supplement in play. There's no need to have separate licenses for these non-residents. Now we can just offer 3 options: 1-day, 7-day, or annual. And that is our proposal. The 1-day fishing is something that we've often heard from, that people want to try it for a day. Why make them buy a 3-day? And especially there's something for 1 day at any price point. At least that bugs me, but that may just be me. But we're responding to that request in this package. Some other proposed changes: we've cleaned up our WMA permit requirements. We've got 5 there: the small game waterfowl, 1-day, annual. We're going to do away with all those requirements and only require a single WMA permit, and have it at 2 price points, one for resident, one for non-resident. Before, the residents and non-residents paid the same fee for those permits. The same fee for those permits. Here's some other changes. These are on the left there. Those new licenses and permits are additions. A lot of times when you think about making things less complicated, you want to add to it. But in this case, it made sense because these licenses that we're offering non-residents fill in the gaps where we didn't have a balanced offering between residents and non-residents. So non-residents would be able to get an annual hunt and fish license. They would have the 7-day hunt and fish combo, the senior sportsman, which I mentioned before, and the non-resident waterfowl would come in at a different or would be offered at a different rate. We've also added, if you're not familiar with Tellico Citico, it is a intensively managed trout fishery in southeast Tennessee where we stock tens of thousands of fish monthly. I think it's a costly endeavor, so we've always had an extra permit for it. We've increased the daily permit just by the inflation rate, but we're also adding a new opportunity for them to buy an annual permit, have the convenience of buying just that one permit for the year, kind of like what we do for our agency lakes. We've also combined the taxidermist and the commercial fur buyer licenses. So there's a lot of overlap in what those businesses do. There's very few of them. Just administratively, it's just easy to combine the two. And lastly on here, not insignificantly, is we are proposing, the director alluded to the costs that we have in managing that, and we need more dedicated funds from a permit on that to try to sustain that in place up there. On the right side there, you'll see we're looking at an upgrade to the youth privileges on youth licenses. So typically now you've got that junior license that lets you do a lot of things as a 13 to 15, but you still have to buy like some quota hunt things and pay for some application fees. We're going to roll that in, change the name of it to sportsman. So now we'll have youth sportsman, senior sportsman. Everything's balanced. We're trying to keep the name recognition throughout the system, and we'll offer it at resident and non-resident rates. So we mentioned two rules in the agenda here. The last two on this table actually are the main rules that will have a lot of these fee increases. We'll be bringing other rules as well that are attached to these or affected by these. A lot of the law that we have, they refer to other places. So we're trying to bring it all up and get it right when we bring it to you in December. So depending on if we do all the things that we are proposing, we could bring at least this many rules to you in December. And with that, I will take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Deputy Director Fiss. Thank you, Director Maxidon, for your opening comments. I will make one point for the public. Frank mentioned that we were going to go over this rule in December. The December meeting will be held in Memphis at the Ducks Unlimited headquarters. So take that, that's where we meet in December. So at this time, I'll let the commissioners ask questions. I'm going to, at this point, start with our budget director, Commissioner Cox, and I will tell you, he has worked hundreds of hours on this, and he's passionate about this agency, and it rubs off on the other 12 of us. And so we really appreciate his hard work on this, and we take this very seriously. We want the general public to understand that. Our staff, under Director Maxidon's leadership, take this very seriously. And I can assure you that in the month of October, early November, when you submit your comments, we will take those comments very seriously as well. And Frank mentioned it, we welcome your comments because you might see something a little differently than we see it. And so we welcome those comments that we can take those under consideration. This is a very serious matter and we take it very seriously. And so at this time, I'll defer to Commissioner Cox, and he could start the Q&A from the commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate what you said. I've done this 2 times before, and I swore I'd never vote for another one. And had we not gotten an unfunded mandate, which not saying it wasn't deserved, all our employees got a raise with the other state employees, we probably would not be here. And we're kind of being forced to, with inflation for the last 3 years and et cetera, we probably got to do something. We've had a lot of questions about different licenses and the price points, and I do have a couple of, we talked about saving money, and I do have a couple of questions either for answer now or for consideration. We've got heavy equipment projects across the state. How far behind, we don't have enough equipment. How far behind are we on our projects? Is that a fair question to ask? I hadn't seen Jay, but how far behind are we on projects? If we didn't have another project, how long would it take to finish what we've got on the book?
Mr. Chairman, on most of our access area and heavy equipment projects, we're behind 2 years.
And that's dug areas, boat ramps, everything that a heavy equipment does, I guess, for the agency. We just got a list.
Yes, sir. The most requested thing we get from members of the General Assembly and from the public is access areas. It's going to be boat launch areas. And we just have got a very small one that does this. And so most of those are 2 years out. That's anything from a parking lot or an access area to a concrete ramp to striping lighting. It takes us about 2 years because we have so many requests. Those projects are that far out.
Mhm. And I know I'm sure that you've done cost benefit analysis of all your programs, and we've mentioned, or I've mentioned before, and I'm not asking for an answer now, but we do a lot of work on duck areas, and word money, I'm not going to propose anything, so just chill. But we do a lot of work on duck areas. It costs a lot of money, and it's a consideration because, to me, no other states provide what we do for our hunters. So I would like to see a cost benefit analysis of that. And I know that's, we love our duck hunters and we do a lot for them, but other states don't do near what we do. I will say, to cut it short, Tennessee is funded, as Frank said, from license sales and the federal match for probably 90% of the budget. The biggest criticism that we receive and that the hunters and fishermen do or don't understand is other states around us are funded by license sales, but they also, several of them get a portion of the sales tax that their state generates, 1/8 of 1% or 1/4 of 1%. And that's millions of dollars that helps offset their costs. And I suspect if you took every state around us, because it's probably regional is a better comparison, and divided it by the number of hunters and fishermen, and I've not done this gyration, but I'll bet you that you will see that the other agencies are managed and spend the money that Tennessee does. Now, I think Tennessee does a better job than other states, but whether it's general fund money, sales tax money, whatever it is, those states spend as much money as Tennessee on what we provide. We just get it all through licenses. So when our license was $165 for sports, we don't get the general fund money and we don't get sales tax money. This business model is not sustainable, in my opinion. We need to do something different. And hopefully we can, future commissions and can work on that, and Director Maxidon. So there's probably going to be a lot of discussion in about these fees and how much it ought to be, but I appreciate the work you've done. Y'all done a great job. So that's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Commissioner Moody.
I just want to thank the staff for putting in all the time, because I know the staff in the commission have kind of batted these ideas around for a while, and I know the staff's looked at it long and hard. Commissioner Cox referenced the business model, and of course that's near and dear to my heart. Just looking at it, unfortunately, as a business, as opposed to all the resources that we provide, and it's hard. I mean, it's just hard all the way around. We're not on an island. I think everybody in today's economy is suffering from it. So I know it won't be easy, but just thanks.
Commissioner Blue.
Yeah. Hey, thank you, Frank, for all your work. Director, I think y'all have made some painful cuts. You're mindful of the money that we've got. You can't buy today what you could with the same amount of money 5 years ago. If you don't believe me, go to the grocery, go to the gas pump. It's not hard to see. And y'all do a great job, and appreciate your hard work on tightening down where we can and making this painless as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Butt.
I'd like to thank staff as well. I'd like to draw our attention to, I think, two primary functions of revenue for the agency. One is the great reduction that our staff has accomplished through the reduction of the budget. It's gone from 170 plus million to 130. That's a 25% reduction in different aspects of operations. The other is that I don't think that the public understands how that license revenue affects the federal match or federal revenue that comes with it. And so a large percent, and I think that Commissioner Cox said 90% of our operations come from license sales and federal dollars. And so as you look at that, and 45% of the revenue from license sales is generates, or license sales generates a great number of dollars from federal matching. So if we don't sell a license, we don't get that money. So it's important to understand that our license holders contribute greatly to the operation of the agency. And I'd like for that to be noted as we go forward with this discussion. Thank you.
Yep. Mr. Saltzman.
Our job is to manage a resource, right? That's the job. We are a pay-as-you-go state. We are a pay-as-you-go agency. We don't carry debt, all good things. But just like every household, every government, you run out of money before you run out of good causes. And we do lots of good things. But before we talk about increases, in the Commissioner Budd's point, we should talk about what we have cut, what we can do less of. Because we do a lot of good things, but we don't have unlimited money. And so for the next couple of months, our job on the commission, your job as the staff and the agency, is to make those decisions on what we can do with the resources we have. We don't get to print more money like Washington. We don't get to have make-believe money. We don't get to float bonds. We've got to make the decisions with the money we've got. And as for the public thinks about usually one thing. What do I get for my license? What do I get for mine? We have to make sure this is a good value for them as we manage this resource. So I think as we go into this, I'm going to be very interested on what we're not doing. What do we not fund? What can we do less of? And that's across the board. And those are hard decisions. And that's what we get paid the big bucks for, right, Stan?
That's right.
And I would encourage the people in the audience. I'm happy to cut half my pay. There's no question about that. For the people listening online or in the room, or the people that are going to be part of this debate, I ask you to be part of this conversation, because we all have things that are important to us, that are important to what we do. And I would ask you to broaden that about the rest of the state, because this isn't all about duck hunting or fishing trout or one WMA. This is about the whole state. This is about the employees that we have, the facilities that we maintain. We've got lots of old facilities. We drive lots of old trucks. We want to make sure all of our team has the proper resources to do. But the job for the next 6 months is to make the decision with limited resources. What choices are we going to make? And that's what this is about. Thank you, Chairman.
It's always great to follow Commissioner Saltzman. That was great. It was actually well said. And I'd also like to say, even though, we're a different state than some of our surrounding states, we're pay as you go. It's an unfunded mandate that we're facing. So we're just going to treat this like a business, as Commissioner Moody said. And I want to thank y'all for your work on this. The other thing I'd like to say is actually, and I'd like to applaud, is like the streamlining and the making this whole process less bureaucratic. Because as a consumer, and you're like a first-time hunter or a fisherman, it is really hard to go into that computer and look through the thing and to figure it out. So the more that we can try to streamline and process, make it a less bureaucratic process, we need to look for that. And, whether that be in the publications or the, internet, going on that, I just applaud that, and let's look for that some more. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well said. Mr. Davenport.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Commissioner Cox, Chairman Cox, for his words. I echo a lot of what the previous statements, and Chip, you just kind of summed it all up and hit it with a hammer. A couple of points to make. We are blessed in the 3 grand regions of this state to have all the streams and rivers and lakes we have. And it's a great resource, not for the hunters and fishermen, but it's also a great resource for all residents of our state. We can cut so far, but at some point a cut is going to result in a diminishment in management of these resources and the enjoyment by hunters and fishermen and the rest of the public. I'd like to further explain a couple of points. Frank made a comment about COVID. During COVID, people were stuck in their houses and they had nowhere to go. So we experienced a dramatic increase in revenue from hunters and fishermen going out into the state because they frankly had nothing else to do. And that basically must problem had kicked it down the road a couple of years. The other point I'd like to make is that sales tax, which funds a lot of the state budget, if not all, is index inflation. If a loaf of bread goes from $2 to $4, then the sales tax on that doubles. So revenue increases with a sales tax in response to inflation. Our revenue has increased zero in response to inflation, although our costs have increased dramatically, as Frank pointed out. Thank you.
Well said. Mr. Box.
For the point that I was thinking and feeling, I think it's important to say again how much we appreciate you, Director, and all your leadership in the ways you've already tried to find ways to trim and tighten your budget. And Stan mentioned that earlier. It's amazing. We hear so much about government waste, but in this, in my short time, I don't see it here. I don't know another business or government entity that is run so efficiently, and I really applaud you for that. We still have a long way to go, but I really appreciate the effort and the passion you have to preserve these essential services that the agency has to provide, and just find a way to hang on to those. I would challenge you, and I know it's been a topic of discussion for a long time, but I would challenge you to continue to look at those user groups that don't really pay. We've heard it said over and over, our hunters and really carry the cost of all the work of this agency and all the conservation that we've enjoyed for so long. So I would challenge you to try to figure out those, those user groups that aren't sharing in that, and see what we can do to try to fill that gap.
Thank you, Commissioner Box. Commissioner Wright. Commissioner Woods. Commissioner Atkin. Mr. Childress, you bring it home.
After listening to everybody else, I have no ideas of my own. I just reach out to the public to engage a commissioner, talk to them, because a good idea too could go a long ways. Tennessee's a great place, and we have this great TWRA, and you got a Great Lakes and all. They're still great. Even cut back a little, they're still going to be better than anything else. But to reach out to somebody, you might have an idea. Some corporation might have a way to help us. Any idea is a good idea. It might not be the right idea, and it might have been thought about before, but reach out, engage. The public is who we represent, and we need y'all's help on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Childress. I'll wrap it up, and I think the public heard from this commission. We take this very seriously. I've said this before. We welcome your thoughts and your ideas, and we look forward to getting your comments in the month of October and November, and then we'll be taking this for a vote in the month of December in Memphis. Commissioner Director Fiss, do you have anything else to add? You good, Deputy Director?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Director Maxedon, you okay? All right, at this time, we have some guests here that have requested to speak. If you want to speak, please come to the mic, state your name, and you have 3 minutes. I believe we have Mr. Thompson.
Give me glasses here. Thank you, commissioners, for allowing me to come up and speak. I'm here. I'm Mark on behalf of Drake's Landing Campground. My wife and I, we're on Springville, Tennessee, going on our 6th year. We have 112 campsites, 5 tiny houses, and 30 boat storage units. We're here because we're not allowed to use the boat ramp at Country Junction Resort and Marina. We're kindly discriminated against on that access. We're asking for another access point at this time for another boat launch. We're having to drive 3.5 miles to the Britton Ford ramp with all of this expansion of Britton Ford, Hog Hollow Campground, as well as Sunny Ridge, adding 125 or so additional sites. The parking there is overrun. We're having to scramble for different places to launch. The Country Junction Resort from 1 mile away to 3 miles away to buy a yearly sticker and launch there. And they'll ask you up front, where do you camp? If you tell them you camp at Drake's Landing, you're not allowed to use their facilities. That's total discrimination. I would ask commissioners to work with TVA on this issue. They're stopping our children from using the swimming area as well as fishing off of the bank. And that's something I think the commissioners need to address as well. Let's see. I have a print out here where they had put on the Country Junction Village who could use the boat launch. Residents can use the boat launch. We've been residents there 15 years. I've actually, like I said, I've lived in the campground 6 years. I own several other properties. I have my wife and I. We own 385 Pleasant Grove, 517 Pleasant Grove Road, as well as 915 Pleasant Grove Road. We own 81 Tennessee Drive, 95 Tennessee Drive, and 109 Tennessee Drive. I'm a resident. I pay taxes on those properties. Why we're not allowed? Share some of their thoughts as well. At this time, we would like to ask to add an additional boat ramp to handle the amount of traffic for the area and to make Country Junction ramp. We would like to see that back to a public access like they did Harmons Creek a couple of years ago. That would solve a lot of the issues in that area. A lot of our people go to Pleasant View over there, known as the Pump House. They rent a boat slip there just to have a convenience of being able to go and get on their boat and not have to fight the boat traffic at the ramps. And I would like to, ask each and every one of you commissioners, if you was in our shoes, how would you feel if your child or your grandchildren wasn't able to go down and access the swimming area or fish off of the bank?
Thank you very much. Director Maxidon, anything you'd like to add to that?
Chairman, I'm trying to find out about Country Junction, but Britton Ford is owned by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and we do not own that ramp. I'm trying to look at Brad Weed. We're texting. I'm trying to find out about Country Junction, but it's TVA, but do you mind?
I'm pretty certain they have private land between an access point and public land, so I'm not sure how they control that.
Director, they do. Country Junction Campground has got a contract with TVA that they manage and use that ramp. Now, I haven't seen the contract and I haven't talked to TVA about it, but I know they do control it. And I don't know exactly what the contract says. You know, that's between Country Junction and TVA, dog in that fight. But we understand your point, and we would, I'm sure, be glad to talk to them. But TWRA is not involved with that one whatsoever. Now, the Britton Ford ramp is the U.S. Fish and Wildlife ramp, and I have personally talked to Barron, the wildlife manager for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and as we've just had in discussions today, he says if you'll pay for it, we'll do it. And so it's a matter of money. One, in its U.S. Fish and Wildlife property that's leased from TVA. So
it's a lengthy process to make that boat ramp there. Some studies have to be done before you start moving dirt, and you know, it's not as simple as just going down there. It's a lengthy process, but Barron is open to it if we can find the funding to expand Britain Ford.
And maybe to help the chairman and the public and you, sir, what we do, we partner with these organizations many times on these ramps. But there's a big permitting process to expand some of those, and it's upon those ends to get the permits. And a lot of times we'll match them by doing some of the labor and the work. Again, unfortunately, as Chairman Cox was asking earlier, we're 2 years out on that, but there's studies that have to be done before they can get the permitting, and then they would have to get permitted to be able to do that. But we will continue to talk to Barron at U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to see what funds that they may have to be able to do that, and we could supply the work portion of it, but we'll have to get with them to see if they would be open to that. If they have a contract with TVA on the private one at Country Junction, we wouldn't be able to help with that one at all.
Thank you, Director Maxidon. Thank you, Mr. Thompson.
Okay, I have one more question. Okay, what about the Tiny Camp or the Broadview boat ramp? Either one of those ramps would be able to.
I don't know my geography that well.
Those would basically be creating a new boat ramp. There's, you know, it would be creating a new TWRA access ramp. One of them's got a little bit of a ramp there. Got a little bit of a ramp
Tiny
there.
ramp has like a 1-lane ramp.
Yeah, it's a
It needs lot of
1-lane
work.
old concrete. It's not much to it. You'd have to go in there and revamp it, and
And
we
it's
could
on
redo it.
TVA
It's on
property.
TVA, but we could contract. That would be a new access area, and I don't believe we've got a whole lot of parking there. I don't know. You're not going to be able to put 50 boats there. You put, I don't know.
Well, again, let me say this now, just so, because I don't want you to hear Commissioner Blue say, we can do that. Obviously,
didn't say
funding
that.
is one issue, but there's a bigger issue. TVA has to give an okay to do these projects, and they have to be able to get permitted. And a lot of times, that's a big holdup for us. There are places that we would like to provide more access to users, but a lot of times we can't get that done either through TVA. But we're willing to have that conversation with them to see if they would be open to doing that.
Director Maxidon, why don't we continue this conversation off camera, and you know what the issues are, and we know what the holdups and the obstacles are, and we'll just continue this conversation. We appreciate your time to come speak to us today. Yes, sir. Anybody else who would like to speak to the commission? Yes, sir. State your name. We don't know who you are.
Mark Goodin, Music City Quail Forever. Getting back to the point of the license changes, cost savings. As an avid hunter and fisherman, I want to commend the agency for combining the two, the hunting and the fishing guide, coming out with one publication. And I hope that was a cost savings. I want to commend everybody that had a part with that. And also, again, thanks for the continued effort on many of your wildlife management areas. As far as early successional and quail habitat, and it's great to see the first quota hunt come around on Bridgestone Firestones. Thank you.
Thank you. And I guess as a 30-plus year employee at TWR, you understand what this agency does for all the hunter and fishermen across this state. And we appreciate your award today, and congratulations again. Anybody in the public want to speak? Commissioner Blue, you're recognized.
One last one, Mr. Perry, Mr. Jim Perry is in attendance, and he's the legendary Mr. Jim Perry. He's Kentucky Lake and spent more time than most people in Henry County. Brandon have got a deal worked out. He came to ask some questions about bear, and we are not releasing bears in West Tennessee. I've got a lot on that this week. No bear programs going into effect. So, Mr. Perry, thank you for coming nonetheless.
Being here at this meeting, y'all got a lot more problems than the bears.
Amen. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else from the public wish to speak? Any commissioners have any closing comments? Director, any comments? Okay, once again, thank you, Monty, for your hospitality and putting all our entertainment and the boat ride last night, even though we need to re-enroll you in a boater safety course and get you back on track. And anyway, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.